Zach here from Gravel Bike California. Trust me, San Luis Obispo County is ready to take in some Carrizo Plain gravel. Now, we've been denied for years because of the drought, but this area is well known for its super bloom and things are just starting to pop. Now, this is the largest protected grasslands in California, meaning there's a lot of ground to cover. That's why I'm glad Ride California is hosting the Peregrine, because yeah, otherwise you have to do it all on your own. So, Fog, let's spring to it. Let's roll. I was super eager to make it out to Carrizo Plain, as the last super bloom hasn't come around since 2017. That will attract a cadre of tourists, especially during peak saturation, which is why I was super giddy Jesse and his Ride California crew were hosting this ride, and that they added a second day for me after the first filled up. This loop covered 66 miles with a little over 2,000 feet of gain, with only one small climb to contend with. We started out of the park's visitor center, with its hard to reference signage against this morning haze that we all hope would burn off like now. And there was a little bit of worry about this at the start, as the 25 miles driving in looked like this, and turning on to the paved Soda Lake Road a half mile later didn't look promising either. But Jesse's smile encouraged me that this was not going to be the norm, as the layers of vapor began to peel away in dramatic fashion that none of us were prepared for, and reassured us we were in for something special. While it had been pavement mostly so far, we hit dirt right after the 4-mile mark, as there would be 5 times more off-roading than asphalt on this loop. But what was special wasn't just the scenery, but the community atmosphere of this ride, as everyone was here to experience rather than race, because today was about colors, not competition. It was hard to see what was out looming to the east, with the Caliente Range forming a border to the west, passing a couple of cut-through roads not frequently cycled, with barely any gain the first 9 miles, as we did a less than mile veer away from Soda Lake Road, which, while looking less traveled, made me wonder if the lesser represented options like this on Strava heat map were just as rideable, while offering upfront variations in the landscape like this. Now that the sun was fully out on the main road, I realized the surface was far more smoother than I thought driving in under the haze, as coming up on mile 11 brought us by the KCL campsite, where a good portion of riders stayed the night before, but I'm sure those accommodations were better than these ranching relics. Heading back onto Soda Lake Road made me think of Unbound. Not that I have arrangements riding in Kansas at the moment, but how these straight dirt roads made me think these were the California equivalent, with these parallels vanishing into the horizon. Just as the colors started to come to life, we waited off the main thoroughfare for 3 miles, giving us no other choice but to smell the flowers, and the first time shifting into the small ring, which didn't cross my mind at all, focusing on all this flavor. You couldn't help but rubberneck on these vestiges, returning to Soda Lake Road for the last time, with more visitors making a presence, passing the remains of Traver Ranch that's held this ground since the 1940s. As like this custom painted frame, I had no beef with this ride, but saying goodbye to Soda Lake Road led us to our biggest climb of the day, That's definitely an effort, averaging under 8%, but at under a mile, not monumental either, as the climb eases its way in, with the grade picking up going into the Elkhorn Hills, which literally lies on the eastern edge of the San Andreas Fault, giving a unique perspective of Carrizo Plain. As we reached the last steep part of the climb, Jesse and Katie were waiting with a cornucopia of drinks and sundries, where everyone took their time to make their way through, and even chronicle some lasting moments. But with a short bit of vert left, reaching the peak was definitely an aha moment looking into Elkhorn Plain, with a little bit of tap dancing down a short section, which while being in the double digits, had technical elements avoiding the ruts, but was palatable with good brakes and leaning back. The turn north to Elkhorn Road soon came up, and this had already been a fantastic ride, but the next 9 miles just leveled up the experience, without much undulations or cares in the world, which is a place where watts should not be part of your concern, but just submitting to this landscape and this timeless encounter. It was hard to believe there was still 30 miles left, but the next couple of miles took me further into the foothills, popping up on my Wahoo as a climb, even though averaging just 2.5%. Enough to turn these shelves into viewpoints, as I was now convinced my 42s were the right tire width as the ride returned to rollers and less straight lines, where it was gear shifting time again. And just when I started to think about how there's no water if I had gone it alone, Kyle and Julie were set up to cancel out these thoughts, as not having to carry extra fluids, snacks, or glass-laden concoctions added to the day's enjoyment. The next 5 miles returned back to plainness, which of course was regarding its flat properties, as the road was more taut than curly, enjoying the hills either up close or absorbing the broader palette from afar, as it was time to leave the ridge and cross over the San Andreas again back into formal Carrizo Plain. Once again, it was another straight 5 miles, with now Soda Lake super visible to the left and the scenery you don't get sick of on the right, as I definitely noticed there were more visitors around, still at an every few minutes level. It was hard to discern this passing the street sign after mile 52, that I was riding through a planned out neighborhood with a number of intersections not fully realized, and would not know what to call this even if I had studied architecture longer, expecting there may even be bus stops here, as there was a Mad Max quality maneuvering this grid, leading to our last off-road incline, where the flowers like to find. With more colors popping, I thought about calling my real estate agent, but there already seemed to be plenty of other land speculators around, with my second guess being an influx of tourists, now passing the tentacles of Soda Lake, meaning we were hitting the home stretch, turning back onto the pavement of Soda Lake Road, and my first entrance sign into Carrizo Plain National Monument, with still relics abound from days of yore, and yet to be seen cattle on the horizon, soon missing the can't miss lookout point, which I omitted since I already had good views earlier, as others were still getting their fill in, with some ignoring restrictions to get theirs. And while Kyle warned of headwinds the last few miles, either I got lucky or was defying the laws of physics, with my final turn back to the start soon coming up. And coming to an end, all I was thinking was maybe one more lap? This was so refreshing. I mean, everybody wants to go visit exquisite places, but to experience them by bike? I mean, there's no other way to feel connected, especially this time of year when you're just right up against the flowers. Jesse and his crew did a fantastic job. And yeah, everyone should experience this place just like this. And if you want to support us, please go ahead, hit the subscribe button, or go to our shop, or help us out on Patreon so we can bring you more from the State of Dirt.